Be reminded in situations like this that Merrick Garland has seemed, it's shocking. The Attorney General is not supposed to be the president's lawyer. The Attorney General is supposed to have some measure of independence. They're supposed to make decisions distinct of any type of like political considerations. Well, partisan considerations. And however, their job is also to pick good personnel for investigations. And to pick a partisan like Robert Hur, appointed by Donald Trump to the U.S. Attorney's Office, who left the DOJ yesterday so that he was unshackled from the constraints put on folks working at the DOJ in terms of testifying on the Hill, is, I think, just indicative of Merrick Garland not being a terribly good judge of character. And it's not like this is some, this is the guy in charge of making sure the copy room is working. This is a special prosecutor who is handling the case of Joe Biden. And, it is conceivable to imagine that there are Democrats who can handle stuff like this. You would never see, never, ever, 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 ever see a Republican Attorney General pick a partisan Democrat to be the sole investigator of a Republican president. It simply wouldn't happen, and no one would bat an eye that they didn't do that. It's like a disease within some of these Washington Democrats. The idea that there could be a, Democratic Secretary of Defense or a Democrat special prosecutor just goes beyond them. And I raise this in particular because we saw Bill Barr do this in the Mueller investigation. In fact, we saw Mueller to a large extent do this too. But Robert Hur, in delivering his non-charges, made a lot of editorial comments about Joe Biden being old. Now, of course he's old. It's quite obvious. Newsflash. But he also characterized the investigation and how Biden came off during the investigation, which now seems to be quite at odds with the written transcripts of their questioning sessions. Now, Hur's going to get away with it because I know he's in front of the Judiciary Committee right now. Some Democratic member is going to go, hey, wait a second. I'm looking at this document. And Hur's going to say, well, no, I didn't say that he was really old and had a really bad memory and couldn't remember when I said that was the impression the jury's going to have if I was to charge him. First off, that's not why he didn't charge Biden in this case, because unlike when Donald Trump refused and also obstructed justice in returning those documents, we have new testimony from someone involved in that. Joe Biden found the documents, his staff, and returned them before the National Archives even asked for it. So this is a completely made up thing that Merrick Garland, in his pearl clutching sense that we must, dot every I 4 times, or they'll make a scandal of it, which of course they're going to do anyways, hires a Republican to do the investigation. Here is CNN going like, oh, well, this is a little embarrassing. It turns out that none of this was true.
The big thing that stood out from the report, the Rob Hur report released a few weeks ago, was a mention that he didn't seem to remember what year his son, Beau Biden, died. Obviously, that's a big part of the biography of President Biden. And I'll read you just a part of how that interaction went to provide the context of that. It's part of a discussion of how did he keep track of documents that he was using. This is at the time that he had left the vice presidency. And Joe Biden says, it puts the context of 2017, 2018, and then he says, remember, in this time frame, my son is either deployed or is dying. Again, he's the one that brings up Beau Biden in this context. And then he says, what month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30th. And then someone in the room, or several people in the room, say 2015. And, what comes across there is obviously he doesn't say the date, but he's the one that brings it up. And he's also the one that says May 30th. And, as you look through this transcript, again, repeatedly he says he doesn't know how things got to where the FBI found them when they did these searches. He says there's another interaction with Rob Hur.
All right, pause it for 1 second. So I just want to make that exchange clear. It wasn't like Robert Hur said, do you remember when your son died? And he's like, no.
He's dead?
What he's trying to do is pinpoint the relationship of what was going on with his son at the time. He was either still deployed or it was clear that he had brain cancer and he was dying. And I'm trying to figure out, this of course is after I've left the White House, whether it was 2017, 2018. Now, what month did Beau die? Oh, it was May 30th. And then other people in the room say 2015. And so he's not, it's quite clear that through the trauma of his son having brain cancer at that time, sorting out what that timeline was 8 years earlier. Meanwhile, he's been president for 3 years.
It's a pretty thin
probably, this is not. Now, look, Joe Biden is, we've been through this. It's just that this is a failure by Merrick Garland to allow for this type of bat-crat crazy Republican partisan to create this narrative. It was also a failure on the Biden administration and the Biden political people to allow Biden to jump out there and have to address this because it's clearly BS. So the guy's moving on now to the way that Biden is responding to the questions about literally, I guess there was a box or two in his garage. And they'll read it. Like Biden's going like, I don't know where the beat up box was. Obviously being like, come on, man, type of thing. This is just so blown out of proportion. It's fascinating. But here are the CNN guys trying to basically realize like, oh, we got suckered again.
Transcript, again, repeatedly he says he doesn't know how things got to where the FBI found them when they did these searches. He says there's another interaction with Rob Hur where Rob Hur says, but do you remember how these materials got into this box and then how that box got into the garage? And Joe Biden says, no, I don't remember how it got. I don't remember how a beat up box got in the garage. The tone of the interview, Jim, I should make clear, again, this is from the written transcript, is generally very genial, right? He jokes a lot. There's laughter in the room. It doesn't really come across as adversarial, and I think that's one of the reasons why there was so much surprise by the people around the president at what they saw in the report.
Yeah, Evan, I mean, we weren't in the room. We don't have audio or video, just a transcript, but it doesn't sound like the way it was initially portrayed that the president just flat out blanked on the day that his son died. I mean, I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And really, were they surprised in the White House that this partisan Republican, do they not like, how long is it going to take to get? Like, if Donald Trump appoints a guy U.S. attorney, it's because that guy's been vetted by the Heritage Foundation. And if that guy's been vetted by the Heritage Foundation, he doesn't give a crap about decorum or ethics or whatever it is that they think that he would subscribe to. It really is an amazing failure all around here.
And I also think, like, even though they failed and put the guy in the place to produce something like this, it's also very thin. Like, you contrast this with the Trump documents thing. Like the only thing that's really comparable is documents in the garage versus documents in the bathroom being photographed. But also the key difference is Trump objected to giving that stuff back, which is
not
the
even
only story.
Not even objected.
Right.
Like, we have a report from this guy Brian Butler. I got it here in the stack somewhere, who is like outlining now just how weird the whole situation was. He thought contemporaneously, why am I, like, he was in charge of, like, providing cars from when Trump was leaving someone. The guy's been employed by Trump for 20 years. He got his own lawyer because he's like, I was involved in a definite attempt to cover up and to hide and obstruct justice by not returning ththese documents. I mean, that's why there's even charges here.
So whether Trump hemmed and hawed in the course of discussion, like, who cares? And then who cares if Biden did? The key thing is that.
No, it's absolutely absurd. It's absolutely absurd.